We can't go very far on the World Wide Web without coming across some kind of HTML form. Using HTML forms, we're able to access information from our users using a wide variety of different kinds of input types. We can use select drop-downs, we can use text areas, checkboxes, radio buttons, and so on. Let's drop an HTML form into this script here, and I've got one in the clipboard waiting for me to simply paste it in. I'm not going through the process of typing out each line because it's plain vanilla HTML and we can look very briefly at the things that it does. There are text input here and a select drop down to choose between 3 values and a submit button at the end. The only complicated thing that's happening in this form is the choice of method. Now there are 2 methods by which we can send data using a form. We can either use the get method or the post method, and the get method sends the data into the query string. It just puts that information in the same format as we were looking at in the last movie. That is, data equals whatever data we've entered, ampersand chooser equals whichever of these values we've chosen from the form. So that's how the get method works. We can also use the post method, and the post method is a little better than the get method for most applications because it allows us to enter a great deal more data than we could using the get method. We can also not clutter up the address bar of the browser. When a form is submitted using the get method, the address bar has all of the data appended to the end of the URL and it's all there for everyone to see. The post method is a lot better because it's a much cleaner way of passing the data through. Let's look at the get method first though, because that's the simplest way of moving data from one script to another, or even to the same script. If we leave out the action attribute, by which we could send the data to another CGI, we can create a self-submitting form which is able to pass the data back to the same page where it came from. So later on in our script we've got the same commands as we had in the previous movie. So let's include something at the end here. Instead of printing out the name variable, let's print out the result of the chooser input and the unimaginatively named data input as well. Now let's move over to our web browser and take a look at what that looks like. Here's our HTML form. Now if we enter some data here, and we make a choice here, and we click the Go button, we'll see that the data comes up, but there's definitely something wrong with the way it's appearing. Although it's been able to correctly interpret such URL encoded characters as a comma, and you'll notice in the address bar up here the comma has been turned into a hexadecimally coded equivalent of the comma symbol, there's also all of these plus characters that have somehow crept in. Now this is an automatic feature of form, that it will replace your spaces with plus characters, and it's not terribly helpful. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce another regular expression right after these ones, and this one is a much simpler one. We're just going to take the value as we iterate through each of the get key value pairs that we're passing in from the query string, and we're going to remove the plus signs and replace them with spaces, and we're going to do that globally. So that's a very short but sweet regular expression that's able to make our HTML form now able to cope with spaces in a much more helpful way. The URL, as you can see up here, includes the plus signs, but the output from our script does not. So the get method, when we're sending a form, works in a very similar way to just appending the variables to the URL directly.